Hey, tourpreneurs, it's Mitch Bach, and just a quick note before we begin today's episode. Tourpreneur is currently sponsored by Google. We're thankful for their support of our community, and we are offering with them a completely free course helping you unlock the power and potential of Google's Things to Do program, which is specifically helping tour operators add their tours to Google in new ways that gives you new exposure and more direct bookings. To learn more, go to tourpreneur.com/Google. And as always, show notes, more resources, links to our newsletter, our business coaching community, and so much more are available on tourpreneur.com. Now to the episode.
Welcome to the Tourpreneur Podcast. Travel industry veteran Shane Whaley will take you on a journey with fellow tourpreneurs, sharing their tips, ideas, insights, and success stories to inspire you to make your tour business the best it can be. And now, here is your host, Shane Whaley.
And joining us on episode 175 of Tourpreneur is Angee Johnson. She is the tourpreneur behind A Taste of SLO Walking Food Tours. That's San Luis Obispo. Welcome to Tourpreneur, Angee.
Thank you so much, Shane. I'm so happy to be talking with you today.
Absolutely. I've enjoyed your interactions on the Facebook group. I know you've asked some very important questions on there, and I've often wondered when I've looked at your website. First of all, I get very hungry. Some fantastic photos on there and videos, and I get hungry.
Thank you.
And I'm just nosy. I always want to know, how did you get started? How did you grow? What barriers you faced? And I want to share that with our listeners today. So before we dig into that, what were you doing before you started your tour business?
Well, Shane, I have been in the food service industry for over 20 years. In small town Minnesota where I grew up, my first kind of big girl job that I got was a waitress at a local supper club. How's that for a throwback for you? And I've just always worked in restaurants. I tried a few other careers in life, but I guess the kind of human that I am is one that I'm horrible at following rules, Shane. I don't really like to be told what to do or where I should be or anything. I don't like when people try to squelch my style. So restaurants always were great for me because it's a very low commitment, I guess, if you would say, and, kind of a very much go at your own pace. And the only thing I had to worry about was giving great customer service and knowing about food and drinks and wine and, just having that ability to anticipate people's needs and keep them happy. And that's what I'm good at. I'm a servant, most definitely. So that's kind of my background, is just, being a service-orientated waitstaff person. And my Taste of Slow journey began, I'm originally from Minnesota, and I've lived in California for 8 years. And I moved out here on a whim, on literally a 30-day notice with my sister and her boyfriend, who she was deeply in love with, and he is a San Luis Obispo native. And they just kind of decided to up and move back to California in November before winter came, because nobody wanted to live in Minnesota for another winter. We were all kind of like, yeah, California, coastal California. So I moved out there with my sister and her now husband. And I worked at a restaurant, of course. And my journey took me to Santa Barbara. And I was in love, if anybody can relate to that, the crazy decisions we make when we're in love. And so I moved to Santa Barbara, and I was looking for a job, and I came across a post on Craigslist for a food tour guide. And I was just like, oh, what is this? I've never heard of such a thing before. So, you know how the internet takes us. And so I ended up on this girl's Facebook page, and I was looking at her profile, and she was just like me. She was the same age. And she just wrote, my friends in Catalina started a food tour, and they told me I should start one. So I did. And I only ended up being in love and living in Santa Barbara for 11 days. That was a quick one, Shane. and Yeah. I moved back to San Luis Obispo, and my little sister, she was so mad at me that I had given up my job at the country club with, paid time off and benefits to go chase this love interest. And I came back and I told her, I'm like, you watch and see, sister. I said, I'm going to build a business. And I did. From that day forward, I had it in my head that I was going to start a food tour in San Luis Obispo. And I had never been on a food tour before in my life. And I don't want to be so laissez-faire to say, like, how hard can it be? Because it was hard. It was very intimidating and very much pushed my boundaries and my comfort zones to go and create something that didn't exist and to just, you know, build a business plan and approach people and, you know, build a website and just all the things that go into it. But I did it. I did it. And the first food tour that I ever took out, I had still at that point never been on a food tour myself. But fast forward 6 years later, I've been on many food tours.
Yeah. So just to clarify, then you saw the job ad for the food tour guide. You didn't apply for it. You just read about it, and then that gave you the idea. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. I think maybe I did apply to it. I don't remember because it was such a short-lived thing that I was in that city for. Like I said, love. It's crazy. It's a crazy drug. I was tripping.
So after the 11 days, you moved back down to San Luis Obispo?
Yeah, moved back into my sister's house. I was like, hey, I'm back. And
why do I feel like we should have your sister on this podcast with you? Never mind the food tourpreneurial stuff. I think there's some stories here.
Oh, Sabrina would have some stories to tell. She certainly would, but she's been a big help. My business was built from a team of my closest women tribe. My sister owns a marketing company that specifically markets Facebook, Instagram, social media marketing. My cousin is a graphic designer. She did my logo. My best friend, who I've known since I was like 8, designed my website for me. My brother-in-law, helped me build my business plan and took me out to the businesses and kind of held my hand until I, felt confident. He was like my blankie or my pacifier.
I'm curious what their reaction was. So you come back and you say, hey, or maybe I'm incorrect here, but you had this idea for, hey, maybe I can start a food tour here in SLO. And then you spoke to your various family members who have this, areas of expertise. What was their initial reaction to you when you suggested this?
Oh, they were super stoked for me. My brother-in-law, he's totally a yes man. He has his own business. My sister has her own business. All those people I just mentioned, they're all entrepreneurs. So, right. They were like, go get it. Like, here we are to support you and uplift you and help you in whatever way that we can. And to this day, they all still do. And so it's really great to be surrounded by people who, instead of saying like, oh no, like this could happen, they were all like, yeah, let's do this. So, your vibe is your tribe. So you can do anything if you want to.
Yeah. And then so you have the idea for the business. You speak to some family members. Great that they're cheerleading. What were the next steps for you? I mean, how did you go about researching the competitive landscape, whether there was a need and a desire for food tours in SLO? How did you go about doing that? Well,
at the time, there actually was and still is another food tour company operating in the area. But when we talk about SLO, it's, pretty vast landscape. There's SLO County, and San Luis Obispo is the major city in it. And this other food tour operator, they operated in San Luis Obispo and Paso Robles, which is the Appalachian north of us over the grade. And it's a big wine country up there. And they have a really big food scene up there, too. And I wasn't intimidated by that at all because I think back to, I saw some, I don't know, about McDonald's when McDonald's started, and how there was already so many burger places and how many burger places can you have in one town. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with a little honest competition to like keep you motivated and keep you going. And just because one person does something doesn't mean another person can't do it in a different way or, whatever. So I just went ahead, I forged ahead with it. And the biggest thing, I guess, was eating all the food. So once you get this idea in your head, you really have to go out and you have to taste what's going to be featured on the tour, what's good, what's special. And that's what I started doing, and I kind of like, it was a fun excuse to go out with my friends and eat and have a purpose for the eating and actually to be present and thinking about it.
Yeah.
As in, how could this be portion sized for a tour? Is this suitable for vegetarian? Is this really showcasing the best of the best here? What's the owner's story? Is this a top 10 place that people are already coming to? Nobody's going to pay me to take them to the top 5 places in San Luis Obispo. Let's do something interesting and unique. And that was the biggest thing, was just going and taste testing all the food. And then, all the logistical things that go into it, as in, is this restaurant open for lunch and dinner or just dinner? What days of the week are they open? San Luis Obispo is a very small town. So a lot of the businesses are closed on Mondays, Sundays, Tuesdays, holidays, so just being aware of that.
Yeah.
And the logistics of walking, how does the walk make sense? It has to be something that, starts at point A and ends at point B that, is still close enough to their cars. And so, just all the things that went into it. And I've been doing the tours for 6 years. This is actually my 6-year anniversary in February. And the tours have changed a lot. Thank you. It feels pretty crazy to like think back, all the things that have happened.
So I'm curious, because it sounds to me, in terms of designing the tour experience, that I love this concept of, you didn't just pick, well, these are the top 5 places to go, I'll build a tour around that. And you actually, I always feel that we want a behind the scenes experience. When I go to Montreal, I don't want to go to the top places. I want someone to say, oh, this place has got the best poutine and only the locals come here. That's what I'm looking for. Otherwise, I can just pull up a guide and hit the top restaurants, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can go and you can see what the top, 3,000 rated restaurant is. And that is 100% not where I want to take people. I want to take them to the places that they wouldn't know. So major props to the restaurants who are the top, 5 or 10 in the area. I'm super proud of them and what they've accomplished, but that is not what I'm highlighting.
And then the next step is, so you've identified, I love that you've gone out and done all this market research yourself. You've tried the foods, checked out the ambiance, worked out the walking routes, which is very important. So then the next step was obviously going to these establishments to say, hey, I'm building a food tour. I want to include you. What was that like for you? Talk us back to the first time you had to do that.
Oh my gosh, I was so scared. I couldn't do it by myself.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law, Rick, had to come with me. He had to like hold my hand. And I specifically remember 2 restaurants that I went to. And those restaurants I still work with, actually. And one of them was a barbecue place, old San Luis Barbecue Company. And then the other one is called SLO Provisions. And, I kind of had my idea of what I wanted to talk to them about. But, at the time, I really didn't know what I could offer the businesses besides kind of showing them off. But the business owners were super nice and so excited to work with me. And I just remember it being really scary. I was really intimidated. I remember like the week before I was in Marina del Rey with my cousin, and, here in California where cannabis is legal, I had maybe partaken in a little bit of cannabis and got really deep into my own head and was like, oh my God, Angee, you think people are going to pay you to go out and do a food tour? I had this major freak out before the actual first tour. But my first tour was, I call it a beta tour. So it was all friends and family. And it went great. It went so well. And so kind of once that happened and I was like, oh, okay, this is just like having fun. It's just like taking your friends out on a walk around the city.
Let's jump back a little, though, if I could.
Mm-hmm.
If I could rewind a little bit, because I'm still intrigued by, you don't have a product if the restaurants and the bars say no, right? You don't have a food tour.
No.
And I think this is something that a lot of food tourpreneurs struggle with, is like, you were lucky you had your brother-in-law who went in with you, but many of our listeners had to go in and do it on their own. So what advice would you have to listeners that are nervous about approaching restaurants and bars based on your own experience?
Well, I guess one of the things that I've seen come up a lot in your Facebook group is the don't show up and throw up theme.
No, I should get t-shirts made.
Yeah, it's a good one. I mean, it's such a good thing to have in the back of your mind, though. Like, I actually just actually went to a restaurant yesterday and talked to a manager. I've been kind of playing email tag with them, and the owner of the restaurant's actually in London right now. So he wasn't, and I was, just kind of like, hey, like I've been playing chasing with Benny, on the email. I'd really like to, get you guys featured on the tour. And for that particular restaurant, like they in no way, shape, or form need any help with promotion. They're already a big hype. So I just want to go there, and basically what I tell them is, hey, we come in, we turn and burn. We're 30 minutes, we're in and out. I just want to show people how cool your restaurant is. I want to share your story. It's inspiring. It's interesting. SLO is such a cool community of entrepreneurs and mom and pop shops. Like, I just want to, tell people how cool you are. That's it. So I guess I kind of am appealing to the narcissist in everyone.
I'm always curious because I've been on a few food tours in my time, and I would say the vast majority of that time I have gone back to one of those restaurants, either on that stay or when I've gone back to that city again and say, oh, I need to go back to that barbecue place.
Truth.
It was so good. And I do wonder about
the repeat business. It happens
all
the time, Shane, all the time. I hear from the business owners that people specifically come back and mention my name, my food tour. I actually went to the barbecue restaurant a couple weeks ago, and I had my tour guide tote bag with my logo on it. And I walked in, and there's a family of like 6 people sitting there, and they say, oh, they're like, are you a part of the tours? We went on it 2 weeks ago, and now we come back every time we visit. We never knew it's so good. So just to randomly, hear that is pretty great. And the business owners love it because the business owners know the tours are coming in. And we have some business owners that specifically, when we do the tours, take the time to come out and talk to the people. And it just is so special, for the owners to come out and introduce themselves and, just be interested in these people. It really sticks with them because it's kind of cool. Otherwise, when you go to a restaurant and you order food, that's what you do. You go up to the front, you order your food, you sit down, you leave, and there's no memory. There's no like, oh, they're from Georgia and, we went there on vacation and we loved it. And, that you kind of make that association and then you have that strong connection, which keeps people coming back.
You hear a lot about Arrival on this podcast. It's the conference designed for tourpreneurs just like you. The Arrival conference features so many practical sessions to help operators with direct bookings, digital marketing, tour and experience design, business operations, and so much more. You'll also get to connect with great people from OTAs, technology companies, marketing experts, and get inspired to grow your business in the year ahead. What we love most about Arrival is seeing operators and tourpreneurs, large and small, meeting each other and building new friendships and partnerships, seeing them share their stories and their learnings. This is what makes Arrival so special. So why not join Shane and many other tourpreneurs in Las Vegas, October 10 to 13 at Arrival, the event where operators, attractions, and experience creators learn, connect, and grow. Find out more at www.arrival.travel.
So with your 6 years experience running food tours, what would you say is in it for the restaurants? What's the big win for the restaurants?
Definitely that repeat business of people coming back and people finding out about things that they otherwise would have no idea about. Like I said, most of these restaurants that we're visiting, especially I do a tour called the Uptown Mojo Tour. And that's kind of this not as highly trafficked part of San Luis Obispo that has these little gems of businesses that people who just go downtown would never find. And that's where the majority of people go, is they go downtown. And so there's one restaurant that we go to. It's actually a chocolate shop. And they make vegan chocolate shakes, which most people have never had in their lives. And most people would never associate a chocolate shop having vegan chocolate shakes. And they are delicious. And it really just blows people's mind to, have kind of that huge surprise and how much they like it too, because a lot of people have a negative association with veganism too. They think like, oh, vegan food can't be good. And the shakes are just out of this world delicious.
So you said the tours have changed a lot since you started. Can you give us a couple of ways that they have changed? From your 6 years of experience, what's changed on the tours?
Like physically for the tours, what have changed have been, businesses are always coming and going, and I like to stay hip on that. I when I started the tours, I didn't really think that I would get a lot of repeat business, but I do, which just really surprises me. I've had some people that have come on the tours like 4 or 5 times. They come every time they go to SLO. And once I realized that that was a thing, I kind of, figured it was in my best interest to keep the tours fresh and interesting and be really aware of new businesses that are coming and going. And then just also having personal standards that I need to have met for a business relationship. 90% of the restaurants are really easy to work with and really great, but then there's some that just aren't. So, and I work in restaurants, I know what happens. I know, there's an owner, there's a manager, and there's staff. And between what happens between those 3 tiers, as far as communications go, there's really some gaps. So it's not the restaurants, necessarily, but just what I need. Yeah. And I'll go back to the turn and burn philosophy. When you're doing a 3-hour walking tour and you're going to visit 5 places, we're on a pretty adherent time schedule. So I just want to make sure that the restaurants are easy to work with. And then I guess just, the things that I've learned over the years. And then of course, coming out of a 2-year pandemic, how that kind of altered things when that was happening. But now to me, things are currently where I live normal again. So
you mentioned restaurant staff. And, the question I have for you is, the manager says yes, the owner says yes, I'd love to have you on. But then it's really important to have that really good working relationship with the staff, because they're the ones that are serving you. They're the ones that are greeting you. If they're miserable and sour-faced when you walk in, that's going to ruin the whole experience. Do you have, how do you build up that good working relationship with the staff person who may be on minimum wage? Do they really care? How do you make them care, to give that attention to your guests?
First of all, I don't know if you know, but San Luis Obispo is the happiest city in America. Oprah coined it that on one of her shows many, many years ago, and it's a title that we hold very seriously. So as far as the staff goes, I would say, and I'm kind of just trying to flip through my head, and I'm trying to think, most of the places that we visit, the staff is very familiar. For instance, we visit this one place called the Granada. It's a beautiful boutique hotel and bistro, and we have brunch there on our downtown tours. And our server, 80% of the time, is this lovely human named Hannah, and Hannah does it all. She brings our food out. She mixes the cocktails. She's on it. She knows when we walk in what to do. She's always has a bright smile on her face. She knows the routine. And, we're only there for 30 minutes. I try to really tip her handsomely and be as expedited as we can and be helpful. And, money, Shane, you just give them money. Tips makes the world go round.
They do. And I ask you that question because with your background working in restaurants, I wonder what you picked up being on that other side, being on the staff side, right? Working your backside off for very little money and working hard to get tips. And then, a group of tourists come in, what are you sharing with this? You probably are doing things in terms of communication with the staff and the way you treat them. That to you is just second nature. But for someone starting a food tour business may not be aware of it because they haven't got all those years service that you had.
Like you said, talk to the manager or the owner and they may give you approval, but it's really the staff that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So it's really about making good relationships with them and being kind and being patient and just trying to help them. If I need water, I'll go grab a pitcher of water. If I, am missing a plate, if I know where they're at, I'll go get them. I don't mind pitching in and helping as long as I'm not stepping on anyone's toes. And I just, at the end of the day, want it to be a good experience for the guests. So, as a server, I guess it's just second nature to me, how I think that I would want something to go if I was waiting on them. So, big tips are the biggest thing. And then if I can ever get anybody's email who's somebody who I'm going to be dealing with directly on the floor every day, I do that. I'll just be like, hey, I just had this happen actually this week. I was emailing the manager, and the manager, it was not trickling down. And so the staff, I was just like, hey girl, I'm like, just give me your email. Cause I'm like, I really hate to walk in here and surprise you with the fact that you have to prep food for 10 people and you're opening in 30 minutes and you didn't know about this. So I'm like, just, give me your email and this will never happen again because I can talk to you directly. And I just like literally supersede the management. I'm just like, I'll just go right to her.
This is maybe a wild card idea. Have you ever thought with the regular staff that you see, like the person you just referenced, have you ever thought of running a complimentary food tour and saying, hey, I want you to come on the food tour. I want to take you out so you can see what it's like to be on the other side, and then you take them out. I mean, I know that's a financial hit, but I just think in terms of the reward that staff member feels very, well treated by you. Just a random idea.
No, I haven't thought of that, but I love that idea. I think I should totally do that. I'm going to write it down right now.
Because it's a nice way to reward them for being so friendly, but also they do get to see the other side of what it's like to be on. Maybe they've never been on a food tour before.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, it's such a great way to hype up the business too. So something like you said, I tried it a few years ago. I took out front desk staff at the hotels on a mini food tour as like a kind of a guerrilla marketing technique. Because I feel like, a lot of people talk about doing rack cards and talking to concierge and the hotel staff. But I find that when I tell people that I have a food tour company, I get a lot of blank looks. And people are like, what is that? And I'm like, it's a food tour. And they're still just like, whoa. It's really hard for them to conceptualize it. And so when you go into a business and you're talking to like a minimum wage college student and you're like, hey, can you tell people about my food tour? Like, it just does not like compute. They just like are like, okay, so I offered to take people on a food tour, a mini food tour. And then fast forward, that was a few years ago. One of those staff who was a front desk staff is now a manager at one of the restaurants that we visit. So he totally gets what we're doing because he came on the food tour. And so he's so much easier to work with. So what you said totally ties into that. So I think that that's a great idea, Shane. And I thank you for giving it to me. And I'm definitely going to pass it on to some of my familiar faces.
Yeah, no, I think let us know how you get on with that, because it could be a strategy that other food tourpreneurs, I'm sure some are doing it already. I'm sure it's not a Shane idea. I probably heard it from someone else before, but it's always good to know when you road test it, how it worked and what you learned from it. I just want to change gears. So you've walked us through how you designed the tours, how you got up and running. Your first tour was with family and friends. Do you remember which channel or how you acquired your very first paying customer that wasn't friends and family?
I used booking software. Oh my gosh, I can't even remember what it was called now. I had this ticketing system because, these are things that most, people, well, we're talking to tourists right now. How do you get people to pay for your product, right? So I had Googled it and I had come up with this ticketing system, which I now realize was not good at the time. But they had just Googled me and I had came up in Google, SLO is such a small pond. And I think that I went to some free SEO classes that were hosted by my local SCORE, which is, really active here in SLO. San Luis Obispo, like the demographic of SLO is entrepreneurs. It's kind of a crazy hothouse of ideas here. There's just movers and shakers and idea makers everywhere. So it's really a town that supports that idea. And so, I just kind of, I went to the Chamber of Commerce. I went to the Downtown Association. I was writing blogs. I was just I was on Airbnb. I was one of the first experiences in California. They actually contacted me, which kind of flattering. Even though I don't get a ton of business from Airbnb, it was still flattering.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was on TripAdvisor. And, my first booking came in through that obscure booking website I had. It was actually, just some strangers. And I just remember that day thinking like, oh my God, it happened. And it was actually two couples that came on my very first tour. So, but it was done without any money. You know what I mean? Without any advertising, anything that I paid for, which looking back is crazy.
And did you build the website yourself, or was it part of the booking system?
Okay, so yeah, my friend April, she builds websites for a living. So mine is a professionally done website that I did not do any of that. I did provide, the photos and, the schematics of what I wanted to do and whatnot, but she built the website for me. My booking that I initially used, which I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it. It was for event ticketing. Like if you were going to have like a festival or something like that, it was more like booking system for that. And then I got contacted by Peak Pro and, listened to one of their sales pitches and tried it out. And I've been really happy with Peak Pro since then. It's worked for me. Any issues I've had, they've generally resolved. Any things that I ever thought of that they could have done better did get implemented over time. So I've been very happy with that. And it integrated really easily into my website. So I think that the flow of my website is pretty good. I've definitely went through it as try to be an objective person. Like I'm going to book something and try to do it. And then also compare it to like other booking systems that I've used when I've booked food tours. So I think that's really important to go through your booking system and make sure that there's no sales stops that would prevent people from quickly and easily booking a tour.
Excellent. And then in terms of marketing, paid marketing, so at what point did you start saying, okay, I need to put some money into doing some paid marketing to attract guests?
Well, it was actually, again, one of those great score classes that I went to. When I learned how much you could tap into Facebook to really capture a certain crowd that you wanted. And I remember my instructor that day had told the story about how Target had gotten sued by a man, his family, because he had gotten really upset because he had some marketing mailers come to his house from Target for a pregnancy. And he had like a 17-year-old daughter. And turns out she was pregnant. And she didn't tell him because she didn't want to. But because her algorithms were so obvious online that Target had captured her user information and realized that she was pregnant and sold her coupons for like free diapers or a baby registry, So, when that kind of came to light, of course, things have been enacted now where, so much of your personal information isn't exploited, or at least they tell us that. But, once I kind of learned about that, how you could really tap into directly accessing the type of consumer that you wanted, because I, at that point, knew what kind of consumer I was targeting. That's when I decided spending some money on Facebook marketing. And I am a elder millennial. And so it's what I'm familiar with and it's what I use. I appreciate the maybe more archaic forms of marketing, which is, like print and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I love to support local whenever I can. And I think that Facebook is just a monster in some ways, but it's also a profit generating monster. So it is what it is. So I've tapped into Facebook and I just really like it because you can control your spend limit, as much or as little as you want per month. And I have found that I have gotten just so much from it because I've really dialed in my target market. And actually, one of my things I need to do this spring is recreate a new ad. It's one of my goals that I'm going to do because I've had my current ad running since May. Since May, I've had an ad running. And the last time I checked, it had been like imprinted like almost 500,000 times.
It's incredible to me just how powerful Facebook ads are. And I've said a couple of times on the show, and I was in San Diego fairly recently, And what shocked me was you've got a big event in town, Arrival, full of tour operators. I only saw one tour in my Facebook feed locally, and it was like a San Diego stunt airplane experience, which I'm scared of heights, so I ain't going anywhere near a stunt airplane tour. I didn't see anything else. And then the other ad I saw, which I thought was very clever, and I know he sometimes listens to the show, is Tom Cratch at TRK Creative. They're a digital marketing agency for tour operators. And he was running ads within a 3-mile radius of the conference venue. And I thought that was superb. Sorry, Tom, if I've just outed your secret to the world. But I was like, because if I'm there and I'm an operator and I'm seeing this guy's ad, yeah, I mean, it's, but then and I think that sometimes, I travel a lot, and sometimes I'm lucky to see one ad for an experience in my Facebook feed. And I just think it's such a missed opportunity. And it's a missed opportunity because Facebook ads is not easy. It used to be easy. Even I could use Ad Manager a few years ago. Now I look at it and my eyes glaze over. I'm like, I need a professional in here. I don't think I can do it anymore.
It's hard on, if Facebook, it changes all the time, right? When you think you get it. Creating the ads on the app on your cell phone is actually really easy. The website one, the business suite, the business manager, that webpage to me is like a hot mess. Yeah. When I look at that too, I'm like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I tried to reinstall my Pixel the other day, and I really had to like go on Google and be like, how to do Pixel. And it was an event. It was just like such a weird, nonsensical place. But I find on the app, on the cell phone, it's really easy to do, especially if, you know your keywords about people. And the pixel is also really important too for retargeting. That's something that I learned from my sister who, does this for a living, gets paid. And she just said, because then the pixel is retargeting customers that have already seen it. And you can also create lookalike audiences. So instead of trying to recreate the wheel, Facebook uses its information to create a lookalike audience for you based on your pixel. So, that was something I did. And that's why I need to create a new ad, because I need to create a lookalike audience.
Our friend Chris Torres over at the Tourism Marketing Agency has just launched a series of 5-minute workshops designed to help you make small changes, but make big, positive impacts in your tour business. Chris will cover such topics as email marketing, video creation, sales processes, review building, and much, much more. This free 10-week series will be available on his Digital Tourism Show Facebook group, YouTube channel, and all good podcasts. Just search the Digital Tourism Show for details.
What tips would you have for tourpreneurs around the world that want to start with Facebook ads? They're nervous about it. They're scared about it. I mean, you've said about targeting audiences. For a lot of people, it's like, well, I don't know how there's all sorts coming on our tours. I don't know how to do it. What advice would you have?
So here's the first thing I did. I chose women over men. Because in my experience, 80% of the time, they're the ones that are planning the trips. So I just, right there, I drew my line in the sand on gender. Then I chose an age range, and I have a pretty broad age range. Like, I'm looking for, I think my age range is like late 20s to like mid 60s. So that one's pretty wide. Then I did just the state of California, because I've also learned over the years that the majority of my tour guests are in-state California travelers. So for listeners out there who probably have never heard of San Luis Obispo, I am located right in between San Francisco and Los Angeles in coastal California. And Californians want to come here because they want to get away from the traffic. They want to get away from the city. They want to come to beaches that are pristine. We're also a premier wine country. We have tons of hiking destinations. So San Luis Obispo is just very attractive for in-state travelers, because you can get in a car and you can be in kind of a paradise in 3 hours with your whole family. So I just decided to target Californians. Then I targeted people who like food and foodies. But even at that point, I am still targeting tens of millions of people. So I then narrowed it down even more to people who like Cal Poly, which is our local university. And so anybody who has a tie to Cal Poly, so that really is what dialed it in for me, because those are people who had a student or are alumni or were faculty or had a niece or a nephew, and they came to San Luis Obispo because of Cal Poly or they're interested in Cal Poly. And so that's my target market.
Do you then split them out? So you say, okay, well, that's the one that's going to be for Cal Poly, and then have one who are just California like food? Or do you just stick with that one ad set?
Well, so here's what I heard from my sissy. And of course, this might be somewhat dated information, but I don't think so. I think this was a pretty good tip. She said that when you do your ads, to not put an end date on them. Facebook prioritizes ads that aren't just for 30 days or whatever. They are never ending. So by not putting, because you can stop the ad whenever you want to. You can just go in there and say stop, and it's just a little toggle. But if you leave it never ending, then Facebook prioritizes it because it's a never ending ad. So it can be on a constant cycle. So kind of once I committed to not ending it, I just left it up because it was getting such good results and still does. It's a great performing ad. It has had over 100 shares. It's got hundreds of comments. It's got like 1,000 likes. And the picture that I used for it was one that got really good response on Instagram. It was one that people liked. You never know what people are going to respond the best to. And so I kind of experiment. When I put things on Instagram, if they are a good picture, then I save those for future reference to use as a paid ad photo. In that picture, people just really like it for whatever reason. So yeah, like I said, I want to make a new ad set with that lookalike audience using a new picture and talking about my newest tour, which is a public market tour, which I just launched, which has been selling out since I launched it. So people really seem to like that one. So I kind of want to experiment a little bit with a new ad and see what I can make happen.
And this is probably a stupid question, but when you set the ad and you don't put an end date on it, I presume you set a budget per day allowance, right?
Yes. Okay. Yes, I do. A very modest budget per day. If I'm feeling rich, maybe I'll spend $100 a month on advertising. If I'm feeling not so rich, maybe I'll just have it be $50 or $60. It's just kind of what you want it to be. And to me, spending $50 a month on something is peanuts, really, in the big scheme of things.
Yeah, I just bring that up because I urge people, if they're going to do that and have a never-ending campaign, just cap your budget, because otherwise, whatever you put in, Facebook's going to spend in that one day, right, just to get the money. So to be careful with the budget.
Yeah, they'll totally spend what you say you will, 100%. But yeah, whatever fits your budget. I mean, you can just do $1 a day if you want. I think the minimal you have to do is like $1 or $2 a day.
I've heard $5, but I'm not the expert.
It's not, because I have it set at $2 right now. Yeah, I turned it down because it's the slow season. So once the busy season comes up, I'll turn it up again.
I've heard some experts say, $5 or $10 a day, and now you're saying it's working at $2.
That's a lot.
So that's, lessons from in the trenches. Yeah.
Yeah, $10 a day. That's a lot. That's $300. I mean, I'm a small scale business. I only operate on the weekends. I have a minimum of 4 guests to tour, and I end up consolidating them a lot into tours. And, some weekends I'll be really popular and I'll be selling out. But, you never know what's going to happen. That's one of the things as a tour guide. You never know what's going to happen.
That was actually one of the questions that Sean Rice asked. He said, with being in such a small town, how do you support a full-time business?
Oh, well, Sean, it's not a full-time business. I wish it was. I would like it to be.
Yeah.
I still work part-time at a restaurant. I'm still a waitress, for anybody who's wondering. However, my tour business greatly supplements my lifestyle. And my boyfriend and I, we love to travel, and we've gone to a lot of different countries. I travel probably every month. I go on a pretty significant vacation. I went to 4 different skiing destinations this winter, and my tour guide business my tour business, totally subsidizes all of that. So if I didn't have it, I wouldn't be living as fun of a lifestyle as I do now. And so do I think that I could scale it one day to be a full-time business? Like, I would hope so. I have big aspirations to move out of San Luis Obispo and to some neighboring cities. I even kind of sometimes think about going to my home state of Minnesota. I have this crazy idea of starting one in Costa Rica because I want to buy property there because it's the last place on earth where you can buy an affordable home. So yeah. I have all sorts of ideas about what I want to do in the future. So maybe one day it will be, but I don't think I could make it be that just by being in San Luis Obispo. Because, I mean, like inflation, like everything that's going on with our economy right now, to subsist off of my tour business, I mean, I have to make a lot of money consistently. And that's the thing. You just don't know if you're going to come to Friday and you're going to have 2 people sign up for your tour or 20 people are going to want to go. It's just so random.
To finish up our conversation today, just to wrap up, if I put you in a time machine and we go back 6 years and I put you in front of Angee of 6 years ago, what would you whisper in young Angee's ears in terms of advice for the business?
I'd tell young Angee. So young Angee was kind of a control freak, and she still is, but I didn't want to let anybody touch my business. It was mine and mine only. Now, 6 years later, I rarely host a tour anymore. I am 100% like, I've got 3 girls working for me. They mostly run the tours, partially because I feel like once I've committed to giving somebody a job, I should do that. And also because they're very competent. 2 of them have worked for me for enough time where I completely trust them and their ability and their decision-making. So I get to sit at home and reap the benefits, which is great. It's fantastic. And I actually didn't even think about that when I started the business. I just wanted to make extra money because I went to college at a private school. And as an elder millennial, I'm carrying around that student debt still to this day. And I just knew that I needed to do something proactive for my future. Like, I need to start a retirement account. I need to get out of debt. I need to be independent. I'm not married. I don't have any kids. It's just me and perhaps this little dusty dog you saw here. And that was my motivation to do it, was just I wanted to make a legacy for myself. And I really held tight to it. I thought I was the only person that could do it. And I think I've become a lot more gentle and looking at the fact that my way is not the only way. And it's really nice to give that up and realize that people are interesting and varied and wonderful and are capable of doing things in ways you wouldn't even imagine until you experience it.
I think that's advice that many of us could do with, to be honest. I think we, in terms of being a control freak and not want to let things go, I think many of us suffer from that, especially at the beginning. It's our baby, right? It's our baby. And to think about other people leading our tours, I mean, that's a huge leap of faith.
Yeah, no, it was hard for me. But once I did, once I got a competent and trustworthy guide in there, that, first time that I didn't have to go to a tour and I just got to stay home, was like, or I could travel, or I didn't have to cancel on my tours because I was going to be away. I remember the first time I was actually in Costa Rica, sitting in a hammock on the rooftop deck of my Airbnb, drinking tequila shots with my beau. Well, I knew my tour guide was taking a group of 12 people out and I was going to make X amount of money and pay her too. And I was just like, oh, yeah. It was so nice.
So you found someone, a diamond, if you will, because you can trust them to take the tours out. They're reliable. And I keep reading about tourpreneurs that are struggling to retain staff, especially with the great resignation during COVID, of being difficult to recruit and to retain talent. What are you doing? What's your secret sauce to keep your trusted tour guide so happy working for you?
My diamond in the rough, she really is a diamond. I don't know if I know a secret for it because I have 3 girls working for me. One of them, Victoria, my diamond, she is a gal that was a friend of mine that I recruited. She wasn't somebody who applied to a job application. It was when I kind of realized that I needed somebody to help me. And she was a trusted friend. She's a little bit older than I am. She's a mother, and she has her own business too. She's also a yoga instructor. And so she understands, what it's like to have something that's yours and be serious about it. And her integrity is sky high. And she doesn't have any traditional job outside of that. So when I came to her, it was a great time for her to do it because her kids are leaving the house. She's doing her business. She's got time. She loves the fact that it's just for 3 hours. She loves the fact that she gets cash tips, that it gives us a reason to go out and have dinner together. And, because she's on my eat team, I have to have an eat team. And then I hired another gal who was actually a manager at one of the restaurants that we visited. And so I already had a professional relationship with her and knew her capacity. And now I just hired another brand new girl, and she's super new. She just took out her first solo tour the other day. So, I hope that she'll be great. But the thing is, she's in a grad program, so she might be moving in a couple months. My other tour guide is looking at houses in Monterey, and she might be moving. So I feel like employees just don't stay forever. You kind of have to realize that nothing is forever. So, to attract good employees, I think that you need to be a pretty humble person and not be a control freak and realize you're going to give them the guiding bones about how to do this, but you have to let them blossom and be how they're going to be and just really look for feedback from your customers. And if your customers are happy, who cares how they're doing it? Just shut your eyes and let it get done. And, if they're not happy, then you have to reevaluate it, but you just kind of have to do that trust fall at first. But yeah, I feel like I'm always going to be looking for help. I'm looking for help right now. If somebody wants to be a tour guide, let me know. I'm looking for one. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And you should ask on our Facebook group, because it's amazing how many networks are on there and people that know good tour guides. Well, thank you for giving us some of your hammock time today to join us on the show.
My pleasure.
Your website, your website is tasteofslowalkingfoodtour.com. I will add that to the show notes, which will be at tourpreneur.com/175. Thank you very much again for coming on to the show, Angee.
Thanks for having me, Shane. It was really fun to talk with you today. I really appreciate all that you do for the tour community. It's pretty amazing.
Thanks for listening to the Tourpreneur podcast. Be sure to visit tourpreneur.com to join the conversation and access the show notes, including links to the resources mentioned on today's episode. This is Tourpreneur.